We're good to go. Hey, good morning, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mic with me, Mike Avery, here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. Here to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. It's something I do every Wednesday morning at 8:45 as I'm here in the studio getting ready to record the show. I'll tell you who's coming up here in just a just a few minutes. But I'm glad to have you along with us on a very beautiful Wednesday morning. Hey, good morning, Craig. How are you? Johnny, always a pleasure, buddy. How are things in the U? Carl, nice to have you along with us. Brent, thinking about you guys, of course. Cliff, good morning. How are you? Corey, how are things in your part of the world this morning? Bruce, Jim checking in from Hersey. Gary, Kevin, Kevin. Appreciate you being along with us. Marty says it's foggy and rock. Foggy a lot of places this morning. Good morning, Billy. Bernie. Johnny says not too bad. Not too bad in the U. Greg says good morning from a deer blind where the deer are moving this morning. Excellent. Davina, good morning. How are you? It is that time of year, isn't it? Matt, how are things down on Lake Erie where the fishing is on fire, I hear, huh? Excellent, excellent. And Jeff, good morning to you as well. Again, my name is Mike Avery. Good morning, Gene. Gene, I do not recognize your name. Thanks for being along with us. I do appreciate it. Corey said he got a nice buck on the Independence Independence Hunt at Camp Liberty. Excellent. Bruce says, Mike, what day is it? What day is it? It's hump day. You are a Brenton. I wondered, Gene. Well, good morning. I'm glad to have you along with us. Corey says, good morning, Doug Ward. David, good morning from Calumet. Brenton USA, BrentonUSA.com. Michigan-based, AR style, highly accurate, dependable, tough, lifetime guarantee. My 350 Legend Brenton, I love it. My grandson Carter took a nice doe during the youth hunt. I was not able to take a bear with Johnny Bowler, the bear whisperer, because Scott Gatza shot my bear. That's just a joke. Kind of. And my granddaughter Addison, now not with her Brenton, but my granddaughter Addison shot a nice buck Sunday night with a crossbow. Corey's going to Missouri next week. Excellent. John's going to wait for it to warm up today. Is going steelhead fishing. Nice. Should be a beautiful day for that. Yeah, it is it's November now, isn't it? The month of Rocktober is over, but this first couple of weeks in November are magical. Why is that? Because it's the rut. Kevin Coyote, Killing King Rod. Kevin, good morning. How are you, buddy? It is the rut. You know, I always feel like once Halloween is over, though, I feel like there's this big, giant, sucking vacuum pulling us towards the first of the year, right? Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, maybe we should bring her down to Ohio with us. It was a nice buck. That's a 7-point that we've had on camera out there. And Addison said, I'm going to kill that buck. Addison told me 3 weeks ago, she said, I'm going to kill that buck. Happy Wednesday to you, Nat. Yeah, it was a nice buck. 2.5-year-old buck, good body size. She did have a very nice buck. Yeah. And there are two others bigger than that. Well, two others we have on camera bigger than that. And I hear reports from the neighbors of others as well. Where'd we go here? Good morning, Mike. DIY elk hunt out west. I can't help you there, Rick. Maybe somebody else can. That's the way it should be, Johnny. That's the way it should be. I should have my own property to myself. No Gatzes around. Good morning, John. Nick. Hello, Doug. How are you? She is a girl of her word. She said, Grandpa, she said, I'm going to shoot that 7-point. I said, and then I've been given as her grandpa, right? I've been giving her grief. I said, Addison, you are no longer my favorite granddaughter. And she's my only granddaughter. Addison, you are no longer my favorite granddaughter because you shot my buck. She said, what do you mean I said, Addison, I'm an old man. I don't have that many more years of hunting ahead of me. And you have your whole lifetime. And you shot my buck, Addison. What kind of a granddaughter is that? Now, I say this with a wink and a smile and a hug. So she knows I'm just kidding, but it's kind of fun to kid around about that. Tim, good morning. How are you, buddy? How are things in your beautiful neck of the woods? Except for the changing out the J spot. That's all right. It's yeah, I'm glad you did too. It's I sent it Monday-ish, Pat. No problem. It's for their, and it's well, I have some thoughts on that spot, Pat, that I will share with you later. Tim's profile pic is hilarious. Let me find his pic. Oh, wheelchair with a gun. That pretty much describes Tim Benz. Good morning, Sierra. How are you? Nice to have you along with us. Yes. Yep. Fuel shortage doesn't ruin hunting. I didn't know there's a fuel shortage. I know it's expensive, but I didn't know there was a shortage. Ron said, ducks and bucks. Excellent. Good morning, Jeff. Nice to have you along with us. Hey, listen, I want to talk about cameras for a minute in the outdoors. They've changed the way we hunt, right? I've had a lot of discussions with people lately about the use of cameras in the outdoors. And I'm talking primarily diesel fuel is running low. I did not know that, guys. Thanks for making me aware of that. I did not know that diesel fuel is running low because I don't run diesel in my truck. Thank you. That's interesting. Sad, disturbing, but interesting. Good morning, Cap. How are you, Jim? It used to be that when you scouted a piece of property, you actually had to be out there and scout it and walk it. Another, Billy says same thing. Yeah, diesel fuel happening now on the East Coast. Okay. Angela, how are you? Yeah, that one, Pat. Yeah. I wasn't aware of that. That's disturbing. So it used to be when we scouted a piece of property, we had to be out there. We had to walk the trails. We had to look for sign, rubs, scrapes, and we still do that to some extent, obviously. But these days we put cameras out there, trail cameras out there, cellular trail cameras, and they do the scouting for us. You get a ding on your phone or a vibration from your phone. Boom, there's a buck or there's deer or whatever. And it certainly has changed the way we hunt. Kevin says 13 more days until that Brenton 450 is back out in the woods. I imagine some are predicting that it will be out of diesel by the holidays. No kidding. Ron says it's BS. He hasn't had any problems getting diesel fuel. Huh. Johnny's taken his cameras down. He hasn't seen a buck. Where are we? Haven't sat one day here in the UP, one small 5-point, time to take him down and enjoy the outdoors again. A 21-point in Illinois, unofficial score 207. Captain Jim, first time on the bay yesterday for perch. It was skunked. Beautiful day, though. Billy says 15-day reserve. Gosh, I wasn't aware of this at all. Okay. Huh. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Cameras in the outdoors are the topic of this week's Ask Avery segment, by the way. That's coming up the end of hour number 2. While we're talking about that, let me tell you who's on this week's show. And I'm in the studio to record this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. In the first hour, good morning, Matt. How are you? Sherry checking in from Poseyville. Charles, good morning. How are you? Matt, the Predator Hunter of the Year for the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. Is that accurate, Matt? Congrats on that. In the first hour this week, Sergeant Mark Depew. Mark, a lot of states, Mark Janicek, a lot of states have outlawed him. So far, not here in Michigan. Sergeant Mark Depew, conservation officer, talking about getting ready for the season, what he's been seeing so far. Hey, Uncle Johnny, how are you, buddy? I wasn't part of the conversation yesterday. Sorry, I missed it. I mean, I saw it, but I was involved in some other things. It is. Hey, congrats, Matt. Then in hour number 2, we're talking about hunting the whitetail rut here in Michigan, bow hunting the whitetail rut, because, of course, we can't hunt in Michigan during the rut with guns because the season's not open. So Tom Nelson of the American Archer talks about hunting the rut. Then Nick Green of MUCC checks in. We wrap up the hour with Lieutenant Jason Wickland answering the question about the use of cameras. Are they legal? And I'm not just talking cellular trail cameras, but I'm talking about like the Blind Spot 360 from Primal Tree Stands, the one you can put on top of your blind and pan around. Are those legal? Well, yes, they are, but for how much longer? And in our third hour, we're talking about trapping with Ken Bernie Brzezinski of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. I think trappers are the most knowledgeable outdoorsmen and women out there. Because think about this. If you're, say, a Michigan deer hunter, all you have to do is get a deer within 100 or maybe 200 yards and you can shoot him. If you're a bow hunter, you just have to get your target within, 30, 40, 50 yards, whatever your range is. But if you're a trapper, you need to get your game, your quarry, a critter, to maybe walk into an area this big. That takes a lot of skill. And, of course, we'll wrap it up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. No, I will not get Doug says you should get Timmy Beeson on your show to talk about his bill. I will not get a politician on my show. Ain't going to happen because that opens the door. And what adult calls himself Timmy? I got to be honest. I mean, I shouldn't have said that. I apologize. Didn't get the new blinds yet. No. Huge respect for trappers. Anyway, going back to politicians, no, because, and I have some politicians who are friends of mine and I have a great deal of respect for. In fact, I even voiced a radio spot for a politician. I had to think long and hard about it, but I did. But the reason I will not get a politician on the radio show, even if I agree with them, is the minute I do that, I open the door for all the other wacko, crazy politicians who are pushing agendas that I don't believe in and don't support. And I don't want them on the show. I don't want to give them the airtime. I don't want to give them the platform. And so I won't. And so therefore, I just say I will not have a politician on the show. Ask Jimmy Gretzinger. Good point. Jimmy calls himself Jimmy. Yeah, I should not. Like I said, I should not have said that. I have a great deal of respect for Jimmy Gretzinger. I don't know Timmy Beeson, but my friends and family members who know him have a great deal of respect for him, but I can't get him on the show. Ron says, Chad's comments last week on the show concerns me with the Michigan State research on food plots and CWD. The question to Chad Stewart was, when are we going to get baiting back in Michigan, Lower Peninsula? Because food plots attract deer, orchards attract deer, apples attract deer, bait attracts deer. So why not? And you and I all know, we both know, all of us listening, even though baiting is banned in the Lower Peninsula, people are still baiting. Depending on the statistics you see and the people you talk to, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80% of Michigan hunters are still using bait. So because we outlawed bait, did it stop people from baiting? No, it just made people technically criminals or lawbreakers because they're using bait, when the majority, statistically, of Michigan whitetail hunters are still using bait. We didn't stop it. We didn't control it. So then becomes the larger question. Just because people are doing it, does it make it right? And should we legalize it? That's a moral and ethical question that is far beyond the scope of my little brain. I'll tell you that. Doug says, you're right, Mike. Politicians will ruin it just like they ruin everything else. Jeff said he saw 500 bags of squirrel feed in Roscommon last week at the gas station. The bill she vetoed had a $1 fine for baiting. I don't want. I can promise you one thing: the governoress will never ever be on this show. That one I can make a promise. Let's just say I'm not. My only political statement will be, I'm sure not voting for her. Because she never did fix the damn roads. And look at what she did to our state during COVID. She shut down our state and about ruined our state. Good morning, Brian. How are you? Brian, one of my neighbors. Bernie says that bait's going somewhere. It's all going to the UP, Bernie. All of that bait is going to the UP. Tim brings up a good point, and Jeff is not going to weigh in on this because he can't, but I suspect he has some thoughts on this. Why have a law that you can't enforce? Why have a law that you can't enforce? It's obvious the game wardens can't enforce the baiting laws because they're outnumbered probably 100 to 1. Maybe 1,000 to 1. Consider this. If you have one or possibly two conservation officers per Michigan county, possibly two, more likely one, or one officer for two counties even, and in those counties, you have what? 1,000 hunters, 5,000 hunters, 10,000 hunters, and half of them are using bait? How can a conservation officer... I'm going to say yes, Pat. I'm going to say yes. And even if we miss one, it's not a big deal. We can't enforce baiting laws in Michigan, yet baiting is illegal. Even though Chad Stewart, the big game specialist for the Michigan DNR, admitted on my show that the DNR overreacted to the threat of chronic wasting disease. Now, I like Chad. I have much respect for Chad, but he admitted that they overreacted. And part of that overreaction was to ban baiting in the Lower Peninsula. Most Michigan hunters, many Michigan hunters, maybe most, are still using bait depending on the county that you live in. I was hunting with a guy the other day who is plugged into the law enforcement community of a northern Michigan county, and they admitted probably 80% of the hunters there are still using bait. So if you can't enforce it and there's no biological reason for it, why have it? Yes. Tim says, if I move the 50 pounds of apples from his front yard to the woods behind his house, are you baiting? Yes, you are, Tim, because those apples didn't fall there naturally. You are baiting. Daylight in the swamp. I've heard that term many, many times. Scott from Linwood Taxidermy says he's good with people baiting because it works great for him because people shoot more critters over bait. Again, yes, Mark. Yes, Mark, you're going to have to listen. Joe says, I can't help it if the deer picked up the apples and carried them a half mile from the tree to enjoy a snack under his stand. You can't control the deer. Oh, is this the NRA calling me again? Quit calling me NRA and asking for money. Where did they find that guy, Pat? Where did they find that guy?
I don't know. Where?
I don't know.
Who we talking about?
That J spot right there?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
But if you rake your yard and put the leaves and acorns in a pile, are you baiting? Yes, Jeff. If you move the food source in any way, you are baiting. And that's illegal. Even though Chad Stewart admitted that the DNR overreacted in their response to chronic wasting disease. And part of that reaction was to ban baiting in the Lower Peninsula. I'm just raising the question. If we can't enforce the law, should the law be on the books? That's one question. NRA twice a day. Yep. Twice a day. I support the NRA, but quit calling me asking me for money. If you need more money, NRA, charge me more money for my NRA membership and then leave me alone. Don't keep calling me asking for money when I've already given you money. If you need more money, charge more for your membership and then stop bugging me. Ron says he moved a camper over by the apple trees. See, you're not baiting then, Ron. You're not baiting then because you didn't move the food. Good morning, Randy. How are you? Davina says, not baiting, just trying to plant apple trees by a stand. Yeah, Tim, the NRA is not, in my opinion, the NRA is not doing themselves a lot of favors right now by their constant hounding of gun owners and shooters. Again, I support the NRA. We need the NRA. They're doing a great job. But NRA, if you need more money from me, then charge me right off the bat for my NRA membership and then quit bugging me. 30 seconds, eh, Charlie? 20 seconds now. Well, actually 16 seconds now. Good morning, Randy. How are you? All right, my friends, I'm going to have to change my focus here from using this microphone, my social media microphone, to my official broadcast microphone as I record the first segment of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Therefore, and as a result, and thereby, I'm not going to be able to directly interact with you as I have been here. I won't be able to directly answer your questions or your comments. But we can do this again tonight at 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. And we're going to start out our Ham for the Holidays segment tonight. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats, MichiganBrand.net, will be joining me. It's the law. Definitely should not be on the books. Zero purpose, quick to add the laws, impossible to repeal. Totally agree on the NRA. Support them completely, but cut out the cost. Kevin, you and I are on the same. Oh, I got to go. See you tonight, my friends, 7 o'clock for another edition of Wednesday Night Live. Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, 30 AM and FM stations. I'm here for 3 hours each week talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoors here in the great state of Michigan, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and even some wild game cooking. In fact, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner will be joining me about 2 hours and 45 minutes from now to talk about wild game cooking, and he will have another great recipe for us. Well, it's the month of November. Rocktober's behind us now. It's the month of November. And from now until the first of the year, there's this, you hear that noise in the background? It's kind of a whine, and then it turns into a hum, and then it turns into a roar. It's the sound of this giant vacuum sucking us increasingly fast until the end of the year. I've always felt this way, that once Halloween is behind us, the marketing powers that be start to push us and pull us toward the end of the year. It's like we don't have time to breathe. There's Halloween, and then there's Thanksgiving, and then there's Christmas, and then there's New Year's. So all we can do is say, you know what? We like I'll say this. I like the holidays. I love the holidays. But I don't like the pressure and the marketing hype that we are going to have to deal with now for the next 2 months. So maybe I'll just refuse to be a part of it. I'll enjoy the holidays, but take time, relax, breathe, get outdoors, go hunting, go fishing, and let the marketing people do what they will and hype us and try to sell us stuff. Hey, I make my living trying to sell stuff in part, right? So I get that. But get outdoors, relax, breathe, get away from it, and just have fun. Well, the weather's been kind of interesting, hasn't it? It's kind of a roller coaster here. We had that cold snap, that really cold snap a couple of weeks ago when we said, hey, it's too early to be that cold. And it was. Well, now I'm saying, hey, it's too late to be this warm. It seems like we're on a temperature roller coaster. Michigan's meteorologist, Mark Torregrossa, he didn't allude to this. He said this is going to be the case. We're going to be on a weather roller coaster, highs and lows, highs and lows. And right now we've got some abnormally warm weather. Will that affect the whitetail rut? That's always the question, isn't it? The rut. When's the rut going to start? How will the weather affect the rut? How will the moon phase affect the rut? And listen, I do not pretend to be a deer hunting expert at all. I don't want to be a deer hunting expert, but I am an observer, right? I'm a lifelong participant. I'm not as hardcore about deer hunting as I am bear hunting or turkey hunting or walleye fishing. But I am a participant and an observer. The whitetail rut is going to happen basically from October, the first 10 days or so of November. It's going to happen. And why is that significant? Well, it's significant because, number one, primarily, first and foremost, biologically, it's the time of year that our whitetail herd is in kind of a crazy time, right? The bucks get all this extra hormone in them and they get distracted and their necks swell up and they're chasing does and they may come out in the daylight more than they would have the other 50 weeks of the year. So it's great news for hunters. Basically, regardless of the weather, the whitetail rut is going to happen. It's happening now. You're seeing rubs, you're seeing scrapes. And what's the difference? I hear this all the time. Hey, people say, hey, I saw a big scrape on a tree the other day. Well, you didn't see a scrape on a tree. You saw a rub. Scrapes are on the ground. Rubs are on the trees. And what's the purpose of them? They're signposts. They're communication spots. They are a way that whitetails communicate with other whitetails. Hey, I'm in the area. Here I am. Come and find me. Or in a buck's case, hey, I'm here. I'm going to come and find you. It's a great time of year, isn't it? It's a very exciting time of year. It's a time of year when you will see more whitetail activity than you probably have the rest of the year. And good news for hunters. My granddaughter, Addison, shot a very nice buck the other day. 2.5-year-old, 7-point, big-bodied deer, some good mass on the rack. She told me as soon as she knew that buck was out there, because we had it on a trail camera, she said, Grandpa, I'm going to shoot that buck. I'm going to shoot that 7-point. And she did. Now, being a grandpa who has what I think is a great relationship with my only granddaughter, Addison, my favorite granddaughter, I've been giving her grief. I, of course, congratulated her on that buck, but now I'm giving her grief. I said, Addison, you shot my buck. I was going to shoot that 7-point. No, Grandpa, that was my buck. I said I was going to shoot that buck. No, Addison. Addison, I'm an old man. I don't have a lot of more years of hunting ahead of me. And you have your entire life. Addison, you shot your grandpa's buck. You should have saved that buck for me. Now, knowing full well I was never going to shoot that buck. And I'm much more excited for her to shoot that buck. But I'm having some fun teasing her that she shot her grandpa's buck. Congrats, kiddo. We knew that buck was in the area because we had it on a trail camera. This whole concept of using trail cameras and cameras in the outdoor and cellular trail cameras has changed the way that we as hunters hunt these days. You can't deny it. Especially these cell cameras that are out there scouting 24 hours a day, and then they send a picture to your phone real time. Ding! You can't wait to look at your phone. There's a deer. Is it a buck? Is it a good buck? Where is he? Which stand is it on? Which food plaza is it on? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all, but it has changed the way we deer hunt these days. It used to be about the only way to scout a piece of property was to be out there and walk it and sit on it and watch it and observe it. These days, we go out there, we put up a series of cellular trail cameras, and then we back out of the property. We don't disturb it. We stay away from it, and we watch what's happening, when it's happening, and where it's happening, and then we determine when and where we're going to sit the next time we hunt. Again, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's interesting. It's interesting to the point where some states have actually banned the use of cameras because they say it's unfair. I'm not saying it's unfair. I'm just saying it's a tool that technology has given us these days that if we don't take advantage of it, we're probably missing the boat because our neighbors are all taking advantage of it for sure. But we knew that buck was out there. We also know that there are at least 2 other bucks that are out there that are bigger than that one. I also know from talking with my neighbors around our hunting property that we're leasing. We don't own it. Thank you, Gene and Pam, for leasing it to us. We appreciate it very much. We appreciate access to that land. But our neighbors are also running cameras. So between us, there's a network of people that we're watching where these deer are moving. We're watching which deer are out there. And it's different than the old days. And it's kind of fun. And it's kind of cool for a tech geek junkie like me. But at what point does it go too far? I don't know. And what about baiting? This is the question that came up on my Behind the Mic segment here in the studio a couple of minutes ago as we were getting ready to record the show. If the DNR is admitting that they have overreacted to the threat of CWD, chronic wasting disease, in our whitetail herd, why is baiting still banned in the Lower Peninsula? Baiting was banned in large part because the biologists were concerned about the threat of CWD, chronic wasting disease. So they banned baiting. Yet, depending on where you go in this state, many, if not most of the hunters in a given area are still using bait. Yet, the DNR admits that they overreached. They overreacted on CWD. That's a question that's beyond the scope of this radio show and beyond the scope of my small brain, I'll tell you that. But it's an interesting conversation. It's an interesting question, and one that will continue to be debated and talked about in Michigan deer hunting circles. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show after the break, Sergeant Mark Depew talks about getting ready for the hunting season, what he's seeing out there, some things to keep us in mind, to keep us legal and safe this hunting season. Then in our second hour, Tom Nelson of the American Archer talks about bow hunting the whitetail rut here in Michigan. Nick Green of MUCC checks in. Sergeant Jason Wicklund answers the question about the use of cameras in the outdoors hunting here in Michigan. And in our third hour, we're talking trapping with Bernie Brzezinski of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. And of course, we wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner. All right, my friends, that was the first segment of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. So if you just watch me record it, you really don't have to listen because you already know what I said. And I appreciate that. And Charlie, my nose is running too. All right, my friends, have a great day. Enjoy the weather. And hopefully you can join me tonight at 7:00 for another edition of Wednesday Night Live, where we kick off our Ham for the Holidays segment. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats will join me. I hesitated because Nick DeShano of Offshore Tackle is also joining me later to record this week's this month's Offshore Tackle Podcast. All right, my friends, I got to go. Have a good day, and we'll see you tonight, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Wednesday Night Live.